Good evening. The time is 5:45 PM, and this is the meeting of the Charter Review Committee. It is Monday, March 31st, 2025, and we are here at the Paxton Safety Complex. We have a quorum as 6 of the committee members are present, as well as a special guest, Scott Connor, who is the Paxton's veteran agent. We've asked Scott to join us this evening. The first thing on our agenda this evening is the review and acceptance of our previous meeting minutes as compiled by Megan. Are there any discussion or any modifications, anything anyone saw that required any revision to the meeting minutes as Megan published?
No change from my end.
No change. Paul? Good? Chuck? Good?
I think Paul should be listed under absent.
Oh,
Okay. Good point. Thank you. As long as you're changing, make them 5:46 and 6:46. Take the 3 minutes off.
okay.
DJ approved. I approved. With that modification, Chuck, do you approve?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of our March 17th meeting, please?
I would so defer
So
to
move.
So moved. Can I have a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm
Opposed? Okay, motion's passed. Again, I have, as previously stated, I'd like to introduce Scott Connor, who is the Paxton's veteran agent. I would ask Scott to just kind of briefly,
Yeah, why don't I go up there and then I'm not craning down the table here and we can all see each other.
sounds like a good idea.
Gotta go to a microphone now, I guess.
Scott, is that microphone live?
Yes, it's green.
Okay,
That
good.
means it's live. So, all right, well, thank you for inviting me tonight. My name is Scott Connor. I'm the Veterans Agent for your town of Paxton. I am the Veterans Agent for 4 different communities. I work in Spencer. I have a regular office in Spencer. All my assets are in Spencer, the computers and everything else. And I also work as a will call basis for East Brookfield, Hardwick, and Paxton. I run the Chapter 115 program for the state, for the community. That is, as I said earlier, in a nutshell, it's welfare for veterans. It's keeping the at-risk veterans, it's protecting them with the state safety net. It's quite a program. Commonwealth is one of the only ones in the country that has a program like that. The other states are just batching in with their regular public assistance programs, and the veterans, they have a lot of nuances with their different programs, with the Veterans Administration and with other state programs and so on. So it does work out keeping it separate and taking care of the needs. Working will call in Paxton. Phone rings, somebody shows up in my office, we take care of them. So you don't have as many veterans or veterans that are in need in Paxton, to be honest with you. You still have a need for a veterans agent, but you don't have the actual individuals that are looking for services itself. Let's see, what else do I do? I attend, there's a veterans group that meets monthly at the senior center, and occasionally I attend those meetings and I bring latest information, different changes within the hot button issues with the VA or other programs with the Executive Office of Veteran Services within the state. So I try to keep them up to date and then make myself available for any questions that they may have during their meetings or whatever. I go to many homes of veterans and sit down at the kitchen table and answer questions for the veterans in the house and the spouses, be it, if it's male veterans, female veterans, and all of that. We take take care of and try to answer all the questions we can on what's available for them and what their needs are. And it goes anywhere from, I've sat down with a Paxton veteran and for a couple hours, and all they wanted to know was they weren't sure. They weren't sure what they wanted to know. They just wanted to talk to the veterans agent because they had served, and that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Others are, there's the family issues. Maybe the kids are querying about the needs of mom and dad. Dad passed away. What is available for mom? Things like that. So it can be fairly complicated. Sometimes it's just fairly simple. They just want to chat, and that's fine. That's fine. They also work with the American Legion Post here in Paxton, your veteran service organization. And in that regard, I'm the senior vice commander for the American Legion for Massachusetts, and I'll be the state commander next year. So I am a veteran myself. My wife is a veteran. I served 21 years in the United States Coast Guard, multiple tours of duty in Alaska and through the Midwest, be it Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio, so on. So I was a medic, did some really cool stuff, jumped out of helicopters, saved some lives, did some other cool stuff. Coolest thing I ever did was, if y'all remember the Exxon Valdez, I drew all the blood samples of the crew on the Exxon Valdez. They flew me out there that morning, and so all the stories you hear, most of them aren't true, but it was a wild time for that period while they were cleaning that up and trying to figure out what to do. But other than that, and I've been retired now since '96, after 21 years of service. So, and I do this. I'm fully retired from all my other endeavors. My wife and I ran restaurants for 30 years, or close to 30 years. So I'm retired from that and just paying it forward and working, taking care of the veterans wherever I can. Any questions you have of me, what I do, why I do? Yes.
Scott, first of all, I do want to thank you for your service formally and on the record, because the Coast Guard particularly is one of those agencies that doesn't seem to get enough credit. And from my experiences, the Coast Guard deserves a lot of credit, especially medics, because they're just like the corpsmen that the Marine Corps and other have, and except they're not jumping out of helicopters and trying to catch people before they fall into the water or after they fall into the water. But I do have one question.
Yep.
In connection with this preparation for this, I did go to the Paxton website, and I saw the entry for Veterans Agent, but there's no contact information on there. I don't know if, I'm sure there's other ways people get aware of your services, but is there any way, I don't know if you directly
Sure.
connect.
I wasn't aware there wasn't any. I thought there was contact.
It says key contacts, it has your name, and it has the web page, but it doesn't have a phone number. I have it right here, but.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
if that could
I will
be-
make sure they put in my cell phone. It's not private at all.
Scott, are you appointed? Are you a volunteer? Are you
No,
elected?
actually-
How did you come by your position, and what is your term? I mean,
The term's as long as you want it and as long as you perform, I guess. I get paid a stipend, an annual stipend from the town of Paxton. I do not have a budget, which is a bit discerning. So, when something has to get submitted, they have to scramble to find, But
Funds.
I know what's going on in Paxton. I've been in communities enough.
sure.
And so I took the job over from the previous guy because I had been working as a veterans agent in other communities, and he asked me if I was interested in Paxton, and I live in Spencer, and it's a bordering town. It's only a few minutes away, and discussing what the workload was, I was fine with it. In Spencer, I get paid an hourly wage. I work 15 hours a week. And then the other two communities are on a stipend basis.
As well?
Yes.
As well as Paxton?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
As well as Paxton?
Yes, yep.
All right. And do you report to the town administrator, or do you have any kind of accountability relative to the town?
Yes, I report to Donna.
Donna Graff Parsons,
Yes.
the
Assistant.
executive
Executive,
assistant, okay, to the
Yeah,
town
I
administrator.
speak with her and Ms. Pingator, she the administrator?
Miss Julia Pingatori is the
Pingatori.
chairman of the select board.
Okay.
She's as high as we get.
All right. All the towns are a little bit different. Some
Yes.
just selectmen, some have an administrator.
Town manager, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood.
So, but I do interact with those and Larissa Kennedy, the accountant or treasurer.
She is the accountant.
The accountant.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Well, that's why I send the chapter. I send most everything through Donna.
Got it.
And she takes care of distribution. And if she needs something, she just contacts me right away. She calls me or sends me an email if there's somebody looking for me. So
Okay,
I do have some accountability. Yeah.
good. I will ask two of our members to kind of fill Scott in about who we are, what we have been chartered to do. Can I ask either Megan, as our communications expert, to kind of give Scott an overview of who we are, how we came together, what is our mission, and what particularly we are interested in Scott, to hear from Scott about? Or I can embellish when you're done?
I mean, if you could start explaining why Scott is here today, because I'm trying to pull all the
I
pieces
understand.
together, and
I
then I'll
understand.
fill in, Scott.
How about
the-
I'll try to speak on behalf of everyone.
Sure. That'd be
And we'll go from
great. I'd
there.
love to know what you do.
All right. In September of 2024, that would have been last year, the select board determined that the existing town charter, which is really, one would question the classification of it being a charter. Anyway, it met the base criteria through a special act. A document was created in 2013. They have had on their goals for the select board for a number of years that town charter be reviewed and revised to meet the criteria, to make sure it's accuracy, to ensure transparency, and provide clarity around roles, responsibilities, governance structure around the services and products that are delivered to the community at large, so that anyone, whether they be an official, a resident, an employee, can look at that charter and understand what is provided, how it's provided, and what structure it's provided in, right? What are the governing framework that defines that product and service delivery, okay? And so subsequently, the select board put out a call to action. It requested that 7 individuals come together and form a committee to do basically what I just outlined, to review the charter as it existed and to develop, revise, amend whatever was required to affect that criteria around transparency, accuracy, efficiency, effectiveness, clarity of roles and responsibilities, accountability, the ability to, for a document to define what possibly could be our future and have that in the definition. In January of this year, 2025, 7 individuals came together for the first time. On January 13th, we as a committee came together. We elected our chair, our vice chair, and our secretary, and began our mission. 2 weeks later, on the 27th, we went before the select board with our, in effect, letter of intent, what we intended to do, our approach, etc. Since then, we have been what we would call our information gathering phase. So we are interviewing all of the town's officials, everyone that would be considered to be a department manager, all the employees, of which you are considered an employee. And the services that you provide as the veteran agent is within the constructs of what we feel to be the definition of a service that is provided to the community, that has governance and structure around it with that definition. In the existing charter, there is no mention of a veterans agent or the services that you provide. Therefore, someone reading that, looking to come into town to be part of our community, or even the community at large, wouldn't know, in some cases, that you even exist. And there is no definition around the services that you provide. So, true to our mission and our calling, we've invited you here tonight to kind of share this information and give you an idea as to what we're about, who we are, and what our mission is, and why we feel you're as important as the other people that we have interviewed, because you come from a position of providing a clear and imperative service to this community and to its veterans, and therefore should be clearly defined and appropriately positioned within the new town charter. Do you have anything to add?
Okay, thank you. No, I don't. I wasn't sure if maybe it was volunteering to be on the committee, and that's what we were hearing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, by the way, we'd love to have
That's
that.
what I was like, I'm not sure what
Unfortunately,
this-
you hold a position, so the 7 individuals could not be on any employee, could not be an official, whether they were appointed or elected. They couldn't be on any board, any council, any committee. They had to be 7 people with no bias that could actually look at things. You know, we would not have any predisposition to any committee or anybody else with other agendas. We would look at things holistically and objectively. And that was the criteria that we, 7 people, had to meet. Unfortunately, we lost one of our own to a family medical emergency, so we're now down to 6. So we do have an opening.
Not a taxpayer here. I got my own stuff. So what can I do for you?
Take
Other
that as a
than-
maybe.
Other than answer some questions or stuff, do you want me to write up a job description and who I'm responsible to at the state and community level?
Well, interestingly enough, you say that. Normally, I would have a copy of our charter, but I don't with me. However, I do have your email, and I can mail you a copy of the existing charter, if that would help. What we
Well-
are more interested in is you helping us understand what you feel is an appropriate context to represent the position of Paxton's veteran agent in the context of the services you provide, and again, under what framework that you provide that. That would be of tremendous value to us.
Sure.
If you were a resident, we'd also ask you to also submit your ideas or insights as a resident. But since you live in Spencer, we're asking you only in the capacity of your responsibility as a
Sure.
veterans agent.
Why don't you send me what you'd like, and I can look at it to see what the theme is, so I can wrap my head around
Sure.
what other department, and then I can go ahead and I can structure it and who's in charge and what mass general laws drive my office and so on and so forth. So
Great.
if that works.
Do any of the 5 of you have additional questions or statements that you want to make to Scott?
I just have one, and maybe you'll get to this in that document, but maybe what would be helpful is the expectations for the role that we could add to the charter, or any potential terms that you've been given for years of service, or just things that we can add to it for future reference, just to document the role itself.
Okay, all right,
And we would ask that you just think about it. We don't expect an answer today,
yeah,
okay? And we've done this, by the way, with everyone we've interviewed, okay? We certainly have an initial dialogue, but we have found that just laying the framework for the thought process, right, as the end result or the intent of the discussion is what is more valuable to us.
sure,
And the fact that it may take a week, it may take 2 days, it may take a week, it may take 3 weeks before we get, some additional insights, that is totally fine.
okay,
Our current phase of information gathering goes all the way through the end of June and probably into July, right? The second phase then takes all the components for everyone we've interviewed, and we begin to compile and begin to build the new draft of the charter, okay? The reason this is so imperative and it has such high visibility is in the constructs of what drives legality and importance and what is the document that defines the appropriate behavior, roles and responsibilities, et cetera. The town charter sits at the top. It's above the bylaws, it's above contracts, it's above everything else the town has created. It sits alone at the top. That's why it was so important to get 7 individuals with no bias, no connection,
sure,
because they wanted a clear view.
okay,
Fair enough?
yeah, easy enough.
Okay.
Anything else? Anybody have any questions? No?
Copy of the old one.
Oh, perfect. Well, we can give that one to Scott, and then this.
Yeah.
He can take these 2 documents and begin to, what's at the top of this, Scott, is the definition, according to the state of Massachusetts, of what a town charter should be. Gary will hand you the existing town charter.
It doesn't include the most recent
So
edition.
the one, when that was first drafted, this position didn't exist in the state or otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Chief.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
We'll
for your
take
time.
this, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Nice meeting you. If I have any questions and so on, you have anything else you want to forward it to me, fine, I'll.
Okay, and Scott, if you have any questions, please direct them directly to me, and we'll take care of them.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
day.
Thank you.
I have a question. The definition of the town charter, where is that? Is that in the Google Drive anywhere?
It is.
Okay.
It is
So I-
under the questionnaire. If you look on the questionnaire, it's right at the top, bolded, italicized, underlined.
It's not. I think there's a new draft CRC interview questionnaire.
Yeah,
It's not in there.
at the top. Are you sure?
Yeah. It references it, but it doesn't have it in there. Unless I'm looking in the folder questionnaire for interview.
Not the interview results themselves, but the questionnaire. I'll look back with you and I'll look
Yeah,
back.
yeah, we can catch up.
Yeah,
Is that could be important to put in the newsletter, right? Like
true.
to have so everyone
True.
is on that same page.
All right, if there's nothing else, can we move on to item 4? Updates from the work stream? All right, our interview team. We continue to drive and have been successful in our interviews with all of the town officials and department managers. We are actually down to only 2 that we have not either completed or scheduled. As a result of this week, we will complete, I believe, everybody with the exception of maybe 2 or 3. We also have begun to drive interviews with the committees, councils, and boards, and we have been successful in at least I would say 5 to 10 of those are also scheduled. So, we've already met with the planning board, and we have met with the light board. And is there another board we've met? I don't believe so. I think those are the only two, yes? Yeah,
The only two.
all right. Again, we have, between Gary, David, and I, we have made sure that we update the Google Drive in that folder in particular, especially around when the interviews are scheduled and kind of the overview or our summary of the interview. We also have had, as a result of the light board, a couple of residents that have come forward and given us their own private views, which have been rather insightful, I felt. So make sure you take a look at those too. In addition, as a result of our interviews, we have begun, through the three of us, an agreement that we needed to create 2 additional documents in addition to the draft of the new town charter. Number one, we had to create a list that we're calling specific recommendations that we have uncovered as a result of our extensive interview process. These recommendations would be submitted to the select board in a closed session for their consideration. These are things that would not necessarily be existing today, but we feel strongly should be follow-ups to what we are doing. And our third document is one of observations. And these are one that just are general feedback, and these aren't single observations. These are recurring themes that we continue to hear over and over again through our interview process. So, are there any questions for any of the three of us regarding what I just shared?
Where is that information located? That's in the Google Docs to review?
Correct. You all have the ability to review. I asked Chuck for the observations and recommendations folder, which I created today and populated with a first draft of those 2 documents, that you all can review it, but only a couple of us can write to it. Again, consistent with the open meeting law requirements. Any questions, concerns?
No.
I can't stress enough, we want to get to the point where we have a single repository that we're tracking and not 7 individual cuts at something that we then have to try to manage version control and merge. Because that, trust me when I tell you this, 52 years of working in IT, that is a nightmare to manage and or resolve, especially at the end of the journey. So, good? Anybody? Good. B, content of our town meeting newsletter. Megan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so the only quick update I have is I will have a draft for you by the end of this week, taking what Gary had started, and I just wanted to add a little consumer spin on it, just so that it's a little bit easier to digest for the broader public.
Okay.
So I will have a draft for us to review. I will put it in that Google Doc, and then we can discuss at the next meeting.
Sounds great. Okay. Any feedback to that?
I have a thought.
Yes, sir.
The goal was to have this handed out at the town meeting
Right,
in May.
right. I believe it's the the first Monday is the election. I think the second Monday is the town meeting.
So I'm still on the old school way of doing things. So if we had a little collection box at the meeting, and at the bottom of the flyer, there were any ability of any of the residents who wanted to make a note ask a question, and they could put it into the box, then that's one way for us to get some measure of feedback. Or alternatively, that tear-off piece could be them putting down maybe their name and email address, so we can continue to have a dialogue with them and invite them or give them updates as to where things are if they want to attend future meetings.
I think that's an outstanding idea. And all that would take would be for us to mention it to Lori Becker, town clerk, who actually sets all of that up. I think she could easily make that happen. Have some sort of container where people could provide that. I think that's a great idea.
It's got a little thing at the bottom of the
Yep.
flyer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
I think
it.
that's a great idea.
I like it.
Well done.
In addition to that, we could also create a QR code on the flyer that links to a form,
Yep.
which would accomplish the same thing.
See, that's new school.
That is, right? And I think we do
But I,
both.
but I,
both
li-
phases.
no, I like the idea of both because,
Yeah.
let's face it, we're gonna have 70 or 80 or 90-year-olds
Yeah, no.
versus
Yeah, yeah.
20-year-olds. And, the 20-year-olds are gonna go, yeah, I wanna scan.
course.
The older ones are going, what's this? No, just give me a piece of paper.
Well,
I'll,
the sad
I'll
part
write
is
it
that my
down.
brain doesn't start there. It should start there by now.
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
No, that's a great idea, both of you. That's an outstanding idea.
Well, mine was only prompted by his, so I can't take credit. But yeah, does everyone know what a QR code is? Just
Yeah.
like the square thing, you take a picture of it, and it's a simple Google form we can set up with
Yep.
the header, charter review committee, name, and then it would have to ask for the same information, additional questions you have.
Perfect. No, I like it.
Did we get any feedback? Because I saw you sent the email to Lori about the email or the webpage for our charter review committee.
Yep.
Did we get a response back on setting
She's on
up an inbox?
vacation, which is the only reason why she has not responded.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, I get an immediate response from her. She's excellent about that. She is due back the end of this week, and I will follow up. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because we need to do something with that webpage.
Yeah, because that form probably should go to that email, just so we, because I'm assuming the responses will
Agreed.
have to go somewhere.
Agreed.
It can actually just collect in the form.
Oh,
We would
okay.
all have access to it. It would all be.
Oh, on-
Oh, yeah,
Oh, got it,
absolutely.
got it, yep.
Absolutely. All right. Megan, I know you committed to the content for the newsletter. How about landmark and TNG articles?
So our thought at that last meeting was that the same newsletter could be repurposed for all of those things.
Yep.
And I don't see why it couldn't. I mean, it might be adapted for different audiences, but generally that should suffice.
I would agree. I think the content is great. The only question is, at what point do we want to push that content to both the landmark and, say, the Paxton News as a letter to the editor for publication?
I think as soon as we're ready to send it to the town meeting, we can do that. I think we need some key dates if we want to invite them to something future forward.
Yep.
Like if we put some specific dates, we have in our notes those 3 coffee hour options that we discussed at the last meeting. If we could nail 3 specific dates, we could add those.
Okay.
And then also, the same information will be shared on the social media page that we're creating as well, to
Good.
get the town feedback for that too.
Good. We should also be able to get when we should follow up with Lori to find out when Paxton
I think
Paxton Days or
it's-
whatever.
I believe I had seen it's May 10th, so we should talk about requesting a table
I
at
think that's
that.
the townwide yard sale.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think
It's
Paxton,
June.
I think Paxton
Yeah,
Day,
it's-
Paxton Days is somewhere in the summer or
Okay, May 10th,
right
sorry,
before
you're right.
fall, right?
Yard
It's very
sale.
similar to the
remember that?
townwide yard sale, which is also a good opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We should now seize every opportunity we can.
I think it's June 14th, but I'm not positive about that in terms of Paxton Days itself.
Okay, well, we can follow up on that.
Yeah.
Something we should follow up on. Okay.
And the Lions meet on Wednesday. So I'll ask that question at that point in time that I was asked to follow up with the Lions to see if we're able to approach them, or whether it's a political matter that they don't get involved with.
Yeah, and in fairness to you, the last meeting was after the March meeting for the Lions,
Yeah.
and this Wednesday is the April meeting for the
Yeah.
Lions, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Lions might have good insight in terms of challenges they have as a service organization dealing with the town.
Yes.
Like, it's like when they schedule a townwide yard sale, is it clear? Is the process clear? Is it that type of thing? Because the Paxton Lions do a lot of big events in town, so they would have unique
They
perspective
do.
on that.
They do. As a former person to the Paxton Lions Club, I can tell you they do, and so can Gary, who's a current member. They do a lot of things, not just the Halloween party. I mean, they do a lot of things in town. So, and they too have a booth at Paxton Days. So,
Yeah, between the town administrator's office and either the fire or police department, really depends upon what the program is. So we're gonna have a toll road, so that means the police department has gotta give the okay. Anything that involves, normally there's someone on the lines that will be the contact point to go to the town or one of his department heads.
makes perfect sense. Yep.
And then we'll
Okay.
get it on the big sign out in front and get it announced.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Anything more about B and C that we want to bring up or discuss?
Can we put the agenda back up?
The agenda, I'm up.
Is Ken coming
Scott!
to our next meeting? That was one of my questions.
No. Sorry, Scott. I have no idea why we lost it.
Magic touch.
And this is somewhat tangential, but will relate to like our Facebook page and graphics. We had talked at our last meeting as we were closing about a potential image for like the seal and wording to identify us. So I did take a stab at a couple things that are in the folder. They're in the Google Drive under graphics.
Oh, okay, good.
They're very rough. I'm not really happy with any of them, but it's essentially the seal with some wording, but oriented in different ways with different backgrounds.
Okay.
So that'll help. I think that will help. Something that could be used in the Facebook page, something that could be used in the newsletter, something that would ultimately be on the final report. But moving in that direction.
Perfect. Perfect. With reference to our friend, Mr. Ken Cleveland, he pushed back hard on attending a committee meeting. However, he would like an interview. As an interview, I believe it's critical that 2 or 3 of us only meet with him. And obviously, I will relinquish whoever feels the best, but I would strongly suggest it's Megan as primary, and then maybe Chuck or someone else, or Gary or David or somebody. I am glad to step back and let you guys run with that. I think you are in the best position to deliver the quality product we're looking for. So, he said he would come back to us, or me, when the timing was right for him to be available for the interview.
Okay.
It sounded like he was more getting pushed by his editors, the people that he's trying to sell or publish articles through, for both the Telegram and Gazette and Landmark, post the budget discussions and articles, which are going to be hot and heavy now, for the month of April and the beginning of May.
Too bad, because I think we were using that article to help garner interest to attend that, but people probably will already, because it's
People are
really
going,
highly-
trust me when I tell you,
They'll be
you're going to
tempted.
get a huge turnout on the second Monday of May.
Okay.
For those that have attended the meetings when the budget is discussed, there's at least 150 to 200 people in the room.
Do you
And I'm
want
not
me,
exaggerating.
yeah, that'll be good. Do you want me to follow up with Ken directly and just schedule an interview and have a couple of us do that?
Perfect. That's fine. Just keep me in the loop so I'm aware.
So,
In case someone loops back to me and asks the question.
so I'm going to interject for a moment. I think that any interview that is going to take place, I think that you need to be present.
I agree. I was going to say
That
Steve has to.
if there is any kind of a comment made, regardless of how well intended it is, that you do not believe it is accurate, I do not want to have that shown up in print and you say what happened. So you need to have the last voice to be heard.
Fine, I will attend.
Sounds good.
So it's the two of us for sure, and then anyone else
Okay.
as a third. We just can't have 4 people,
That
because
sounds,
then it's a quorum, and
Okay.
then it has to be open meeting. And now it has to be in front of the public,
okay,
or at least the opportunity for the public to
okay.
attend.
I'll reach out, see what he's got for a schedule, and we'll go from there on the who.
Sounds great.
And town meeting is May 5th, first Monday in May.
The town meeting is? I thought that was, I'm pretty sure that's the election. Okay, well, we'll get clarity around that.
It would have to be before the election, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. Because whoever's elected on the 5th doesn't take office until July 1.
Last meeting, you said it was the second Monday in May is the town meeting.
That's what I believe to be the case, but I will get clarity. I will get clarity. I'm meeting with the town administrator on Friday. I will get clarity. And make sure you're all aware. But my understanding was, because Lori's already begun the slate of candidates, and she's, all of these things. She scheduled the slate of candidates presentations to the public, anyone that wants to show up. And I could have sworn the election, Lori told me the election was on May 5th, but I will clarify. All right, progress, anything else before I move to D?
No?
Okay. Progress on the draft revised charter. DJ, you want to tell us what progress is that you've done on the revised charter? What you've inputted, please?
Well, I haven't looked at it as a progress on a draft revised charter. I've looked at it as a replacement, so to speak. So that's only because of my initial concerns that what we have is not really a charter. It has charter language in it, but it doesn't identify and it doesn't cover all the things. So I've taken the approach to look at all the about 35 charters that are either in progress of being developed or that they've already been. And I tried to make it as close to towns that are of the same demographic as Paxton, with the exception of Westboro, because Westboro does some things very nicely. I have looked at them, and I have made notations on the printed copies that I have, as a note to myself type of thing, what I liked and what I didn't. I have now completed that, and based upon an understanding at least that we are in a position not only to do those other updates that you mentioned earlier, the recommendations and observations are good on there, but the stuff that we have to present to the select board is important. But I have put some of the material that I was using in my drafts up on the our shared drive. I have essentially completed a model draft charter from my perspective. And it's very important that at some point in time, you guys can get a look at that and we can all, have a real look at it. But I have today, and if it's okay with the chair, I will hand out essentially the topics that are in my document. So,
Please do so.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, keep in mind that what I'm doing is this is not what's going to be presented to the select board at this point. This is just a draft that's going to be presented to you. And then we can do whatever we plan to do with it. We will not feel hurt, say, I don't want something in there, or if you don't want the whole thing. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm just looking to give us a starting point that's somewhere on the track, rather than the alternative that might be with so many people, like Steve said, putting together proposals. I really do hope that you won't like some of the things that I will be putting on there, because that's the whole point of us existing, is to try to get it done and get it done right and reflect everything. All right. To that end, I am putting a I put together a preamble. And I think the preamble is something that I'll share with you if it's okay online. I'm not sure how we deal with the public meeting thing on that, but,
We just can't edit it, we just.
okay,
make it
so
nobody can edit it.
I'll put it someplace, and then if you could just mark it closed, so that we will, but that preamble gives kind of where I'm coming from. Despite all of my background with the police and the federal government and the law as a prosecutor and stuff, I do have a fairly liberal bent. So that may need to be lassoed in. But, and I'll tell you one thing, I've had fun doing it. I've met some people that from other towns, and it's quite interesting, quite interesting. I think we're doing a good job now, and we'll do a great job when we get something together that we can talk to the selectmen about and put things in the order in the state that they should be. So thanks for your attention and participation.
Thank you, David. I have Paul's name on, and by the way, David and I also look at at what has been created as well as the, around the table of contents and content. And I'm very pleased with the direction we're taking. One of my former roles was on the Finance Committee, so I have a specific inclination to provide some guidance. And what I asked Paul to do, because of that history, was, and the recent renovation and rewrite of the Finance Committee bylaws, I asked Paul to take a look, because he was looking at bylaws, around what possibly could be an appropriate level of content from that document that then could be paraphrased, utilized, foundational piece to creating, under the section of the Finance Committee, would be appropriate content for a possible new charter. So with that, Paul said he would, and so I'll ask Paul to provide us an update on his investigation.
Sure. So I took a look at the Finance Committee bylaws, with an eye towards how could this be applicable towards the work that we're doing, whether it's, not as much as looking at the town's bylaws, but thinking about as we are just trying to clarify things around the charter. And I thought I thought it looked great. It was a 3-page document, so it was very clear and concise. I liked that it was very much a plain language document. There was not a lot of jargon or technical things that lay people may question or I know some people have legal histories, and so legalese can really get into things, and at times I'm sure that's appropriate, but whenever possible, I think having plain language that's easy to understand and straightforward is very effective, and I thought they did a great job in having a very plain language document with their bylaws.
Thank you.
And I just liked the organization of it. It was it was very readable, and it was kind of broken into 3 sections, and it was basically pertaining, each section had some points underneath it, but the first section was relating to organization of the committee, and basically how does that committee organize and function. The second was how do they operate, so it was kind of a organization, then operations, and then the third section was kind of a time frame, and when on an annual cycle or when are these things supposed to happen. And so I thought that structure of who does this apply to, how does it operate, and when does it occur, was a good organizational system to make it usable. And so those were some of the organizational pieces of that I took away that I thought, we could, if we looking at the work that Dave did here, which I think is great, but this is just going to be so heavy with words and a lot of repetition, and so ways to organize it. I thought that particularly perhaps in like the legislative powers or executive powers or, kind of the elected and appointed board sections, who knows how much to elaborate on, in the depth, the weeds of each of those. So those are some of my high-level takeaways that I thought from the Finance Committee bylaws.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody questions, anything you want to
I have a question.
query? Yeah.
Well, you'll notice that I didn't put the Finance Committee in there. That's because they're the hardest one for me to figure out. Just exactly what to say, because there's, and, which is interesting because they are probably, between them and the selectmen, they're the ones that put together and hammer out a budget and all that sort of thing and present their findings and stay sane, which is something I couldn't do. But do you see anything, given what we know of the definition of the charter, or, it's a flexible kind of definition because it's done in plain language legalese, if that makes any sense. Which I do speak, but don't use. Do you think there's anything particular in there that should be in the charter? The bylaws kind of start from where the charter is and go off, but some things are in the charter that are really relate to bylaws, specific bylaws, at least the one that I played with. Do you see anything in there that you think I should take a look at to put into that section, which doesn't exist at the moment for me?
And if I can add,
Yep.
remember, and I keep hammering this home, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating it, but I'm going to keep repeating it. Remember, we can put an overview statement or two and then reference via a link to the bylaws to get additional detail, right?
Right.
So in that context of what David's asked,
Yeah, I think, how the committee defines themselves or how they, who it pertains to. As we're talking about all these different committees, we need to, people are going to want to, I like the fact that it's broken down by elected versus appointed, so that's a good way to at least, begins to differentiate and to break it down. But then, who actually, how does the cemetery commission define themselves? Who belongs? What do you have to do to belong? Some of these operational things about how do they define their membership. So that level of detail, I think, could be appropriate for the charter. But, when it's down to how do they facilitate their meeting or how do they conduct their actual business, does that level of detail need to be in the charter? I wouldn't think so. And so.
yeah. And I think at that point, to your point, a reference to, for additional detail, whatever, you reference that link to the bylaw. They are, if I may, they are unique in the sense of this. The Finance Committee is the only one that, while it may be volunteers, they have to be appointed by the town moderator, not by the select board, not by the managers, not by the town administrator. They sit alone in that capacity. And so that's what makes that Finance Committee so unique. And it's kind of the check and balance to the system, right? Because they are appointed by the moderator. So they know, they owe no allegiance to the select board. They're to work with them, and then they owe no allegiance to the town administrator, right? So that is the uniqueness of that committee.
I have a question. So this is helpful, like the outline stuff. I thought there was another outline in the Google Drive that you had created. Is that gone?
I did have an outline. I think David kind of organized it in different ways. I'm assuming all of what I put in there tentatively or discussed is here. I would have to go back and check, but I think it's just that he organized it differently.
Yeah, I just tried.
But I'm not seeing that in the drive anymore. Did you take it out of the drive?
I moved it because I was making some changes and I want to get a compiled version.
Okay, so where did that go?
It went into my shared drive, unshared drive on Outlook,
Okay,
or Microsoft Word, rather.
okay.
One question that's coming up, and I just, it's an anecdote in just a short period of time we have, but some of the entities that I've worked with, looked at and talked to some people when I had questions, but some of them are talking about the idea of a finance committee being elected. And, I mean, there's a lot about the finance committee, and I don't know if that's something, I don't have an opinion on that, and I'm not recommending anything, but it is something that maybe, at some point in time, we should rate these in terms of how much time should we give to this particular one. Cemetery Commission's probably not gonna take anywhere near as much time as a talk about the police department, or the fire department, or the finance committee, or the select board, or the town administrator. So the whole bottom line is, that's something to think of, and I don't think we want to take town government and turn it into something, turn it upside down. It seems to work, but I'd be interested in hearing somebody on the other side of that when we have our opportunity to discuss the finance committee in more detail. Although I think Steve is going to have something to say.
Well, some
I
people,
feel like it's coming.
Steve
feel
is
like
going to
it's-
reserve comment and not comment at this time.
well, some people might say it doesn't work. So if I, you know what I
Here, I was
thought
like,
was,
you guys, what's going on?
you know what I thought was interesting was that 2006 report that
Yes.
you share that,
Yes.
where
I
it
did.
seems like we've been battling the same issues like, for 20 years
Yes.
now.
Bingo. I would take
Yes.
exception to the comment that it's
Yeah.
working well. It's working, but I believe it's working on the individual heroism of the people that are employees, whether they're appointed, elected, volunteers, whatever. Quite honestly, I think a lot of the gaps are being addressed by individual efforts as opposed to clear, concise definition, process, and procedure.
Well, then maybe I'll add a lot more specific details.
Yeah.
But the other thing, quite frankly, is that, our purpose is to find out how to give the select board and ultimately, hopefully, the voters, something that they can look at and say, yeah, now I understand, or that's what, and the finance board is really tricky because they have to deal with an awful lot of things. I mean, and so if it's not working well, I just know it's working a hell of a lot better than it would be if I had anything to do with it.
Oh, if you were talking specifically only around the finance committee, then I would agree. It is operating very well. It's had its bumps, and there were some adjustments last year. But I thought you were talking in
Yeah,
general.
no. I'd like to point out one thing, though, Chuck, it's a very important thing to me. In that 2006, it says the town of Paxton has no charter. And that's a division of local services.
Yeah.
Who did basically
An audit.
an audit of
Yeah.
the town and
Yeah.
the way it operated. And there are things in there that have been changed, but you're right, and I do have that, and that's helped me in the preparation of what I'm trying to do, is that there's a lot of things in there that they recommended that haven't happened.
And that's
So how do we know which was, what has been considered or, acted upon and what's just been sitting there waiting for?
If there are questions, then I suggest you raise them, and because we're interviewing the people that can answer those, and in fact, we're even trying to interview the people that were back then sitting in things like the town administrator position, or, the fire chief, or, we've been given those names, and we're going to hopefully get the contact information to reach out to these people, because these are people that I think, to your point, Paul, can fill in those things about, what happened? What happened with the 2006 audit? What was actionable, God, I hope it didn't take them 7 years to figure out that they needed to produce a town charter when it was plain within that audit. It was like, that has to be
Yeah.
done. You know what I'm saying? But the fact is, it didn't get ratified or accepted by the Attorney General until 2013. And I guess it was under, development or work by whomever for several years before it finally came to fruition.
It's
And
interesting.
then it was because there wasn't a clear definition of roles and responsibilities for the town administrator. Believe it or not, that was the impetus for that 2013. That was shared with us by two individuals. Two individuals told us that.
Who were, aware and very much aware because they're part of all kinds of aspects of government. But I will note that town of Princeton is existing with all bylaws. They don't have a charter, which is okay, but, we have a bunch of bylaws, and if you go and look through what they are, Paul, I'm sure you have, because I saw you with that pile of papers one day, but, bylaws are something that, should focus in on things. Charters are general. This is the structure. This is the organization. This is where they're at. The town moderator does not moderate the select board meetings, which is what some person told me at one time. I said, what do you know about the town moderator? Oh, yeah, that's the guy that gets up there and manages the, like a chairman for them. And it's like, well, that's a little scary. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should ask Wachusett school system to add a little civics class or something about that. But in any event, I'm looking forward to working with all of you, talking about the things that are in here and things that should be in there and things that should be changed or should be, but we'll have a place to look at it.
I would ask, as a follow-up,
Yes.
you, sir, when you feel it's ready, even if it's only partial sections that are ready, that you reach out, we put it on the agenda, and we have a working session that I have no problem with in front of everyone that wants to attend, and we go through it together as a team. I think that should be done sooner than later, rather than wait for the whole thing to be done, which then could take significantly more than 1, 2, or maybe even 3 meetings. Because I can tell you, as simple as that 3-page bylaw for the Finance Committee, there were 7 meetings, and that didn't even include legal. That was just back and forth between the Finance Committee, then the Finance Committee and the town administrator, then the Finance Committee, town administrator, and the Select Board, which were a number of meetings, before it went to legal. And this is only a 3-page document. Just think in the context of that kind of thing. The process to get it ratified and presented in front of the town at large is going to be a long one and arduous one. So it's not going to be something that's going to be, nor should it be, quite frankly, because of the importance of the document. And that's why I have stipulated, and I will continue to stipulate, that our target completion is the town meeting in spring of 2026. It will take as long as it takes to do it right. Okay? If it takes longer, it takes longer. And if we need to ask for a special town meeting, we will ask. Okay? All right.
Just want to note there are 5 people watching on the YouTube channel.
Excellent.
So that's-
Hopefully they
Thank
can
you.
contribute something.
No
Welcome.
No
We welcome
comment.
your input.
And thank you.
And thank you. All right. Final update. Discussion of the content of the next presentation to the Select Board on our meeting on 4/28 with them. So I am looking for specific items that we want to make sure we communicate to our sponsors as to the progress we've made, if we have any additional requests that we have to make, and anything else about our future roadmap, our timeline, whatever you think is appropriate for us to share. And thank you, Gary, for keeping me honest and asking this to be added to the agenda. I welcome it. I will create the PowerPoint presentation, and we will review it as we did the first one prior to it going live in front of the Select Board. But I am looking for, frankly, your insights in what you would like to see as content for our next update. With that, I open the floor for discussion.
I think you have already given a pretty general outline of what that is. I mean, I think at that stage, it'll be a few months since we had last spoken with them.
A quarter to be exact.
We give them, what we have done so far in terms of the meetings and interviews, a brief, true overview of some of the feedback that we got without getting into specifics.
Right.
We talk about the fact that we have started to, put together an outline potentially for what the new charter may look like, and some of our challenges going forward that we may need their assistance on, and then just a repeat of our timeframes as to where we think we're headed. I think if we can cover those things in an update, including even some of the larger questions that you've raised, for example, like, will there even be enough time at a town meeting to get through this, or whether there would be a special town meeting appropriate, that may be a question, at least to raise it now, knowing that's going to be a year in advance.
Good
I
point.
think if we can get that done, I think that will serve us well.
Agreed.
I would add just an update on the communications and what they can expect to be happening in the community and
Correct.
our, public-facing activities.
Yeah, and to your point, when we last met a quarter ago, we didn't provide the three stages that that we're operating under now, the information gathering, the information sharing, and then the transparency tour. We should make sure that we cover those as well.
And we should mention, the very next week may be that town meeting, so we should talk about what it is that we may be planning on giving out and saying, and then with the rest of the next several months, what the meetings and the communication is going to look like.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
I did have a thought, going back to the comment that you had before, as to the level of debate that we're going to have internally about the actual charter language. And I'm going to suggest, and you can tell me if I'm way off base, that we have within our own group here a division of two subgroups. One to help prepare and draft the language, and one to internally review it and challenge it, and then bring it back to the larger group with those types of questions. So you have a 3-member group, it's not a public meeting, that's helping to draft it. We get that draft. You get 3 of us then can go through it in the level that we're looking at it as, does this make sense? What are the questions and problems? And then we bring that back into the larger group. So our meeting then become much more focused.
Okay,
Just a thought.
great suggestion.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that works.
So we're doing our own challenge. So
I think that's
we're ready
appropriate.
before we get to the outside. We've done that already internally.
I think we're gonna be doing, we talked about the charter being the charter, the draft that I have done, which is only something to throw out there for you guys to look at, we should have a subcommittee looking at. We'll have to meet. I'll have to get my pieces out there for you. But I definitely think that, the meetings that we had, the 3 of us to have meet with people, have given us a real eye-opener to a number of things. And that is what I've tried to put in to the charter, the proposed charter, and hopefully you'll see that. But the bottom line is, we're still going to be seeking input from a lot of other people. That's what we hope to generate. And so anything that is out there for us to look at may not quite be the time yet, but after town meeting, we should go after it, because then we'll be getting input from hopefully some of the people at the town meeting that have scanned a QR code or written a piece of paper.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that we have this conversation or debate now, but when that time comes,
Right.
I think from an economy standpoint and time standpoint, I think we may be able to get more accomplished in that way.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree. And we're talking about the second half of the year.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
We're not talking immediate. But I'm glad, that's an excellent suggestion. I'm glad you asked for clarification, because that puts it in appropriate context.
Although I would like you to read the preamble first.
All right. I would ask, as part of 4E, that any of you that have additional ideas, please present them to me so that I can begin to create that construct, that presentation for the 428 update. All right? All right. Is there anything else that we need to cover under the auspices of updates on work streams? Number 4. Have we covered everything to everyone's satisfaction? All right. Is there any new business that we need to cover?
Question. So in one of our meetings, we had learned that there was, for example, a town meeting vote that had taken place years ago and that we never knew about it.
Are you speaking about the one about the recall?
Yeah, as an example. My question is, how do we go about and find if there are other things like that that may be relevant to the charter that were previously approved, but not formally adopted in some fashion? So that would help us to determine where we're headed. Does that make sense at all?
It does. The only person, we can approach this in a couple of ways, but I think the person that would be best suited to respond to that question or query or request would be to start with the town clerk / executive assistant. I don't believe the moderator would remember everything that would
No,
pass.
we actually need the records,
Bingo.
yeah.
And then the one that I am aware of that keeps all of the town's records and has that in accountability as defined by the interview we had with her is Lori Becker, the town clerk. So I think we start with her to ask for those records
And she,
or that information. Not the specific documents, but just could she somehow give us an idea, say what has passed over the last 10 years? What items have been put to a vote relative to the last 10 years? Or if you want to go back even further, we can. But I think she's the best person suited to respond to that query,
Okay,
in my opinion.
I don't know, that's why I'm asking the question.
Yep. No, it's a great question. All right. Anything else under new business? Anything under old business? Anyone watching on live, any questions for the chair or the members of the committee? As we have nobody in public, from the public here in the public safety complex.
Feel free to post questions in the live chat.
That would be good. Nothing? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Can I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? If none, I officially call this meeting adjourned. Thank you for all of your participation.